Let's begin with our top focus on Hong Kong, as a Hong Kong higher court has rejected a plea to release the first person to be charged under the national security law in the China-administered city of Hong Kong. In its decision, the court has denied the bid for the release of Tong Ying-kit, a 23-year-old man first to be charged with inciting separatism and terrorism under Hong Kong's new national security law imposed by China. Tong Ying-kit was remanded into police custody and was booked for terrorism last week. He allegedly drove a motorbike into a group of police officers, injuring at least 3 while flying a banner that read, "Liberate Hong Kong, Revolution of Our Times." The team for Tong had argued that Article 42 of the new legislation was inconsistent with the Basic Law and that it amounted to a no-bail provision. However, Tong's writ of habeas corpus was denied by the 2 Hong Kong judges, concluding that there was no doubt that the magistrate had the lawful authority to remand him. Now, Justice Anderson Chow and Justice Alex Lee also said that his counsel can apply for review of bail refusal under currently available legal provisions. Tong was also denied bail last month with regards to another case where more than 300 protesters were arrested by the City Police Department for opposing the newly imposed security law. The common law in Hong Kong has always allowed defendants to seek bail or release unless the prosecuting authorities provide lawful grounds for their detention. But with the imposition of the new national security law, the burden is now on the defendant. The case against Tong is similar to that of media tycoon Jimmy Lai, who was arrested last week over suspected collusion with foreign forces under the new national security law. It is being said this is the highest profile arrest to have been under this legislation, and we're talking about Jimmy Lai's arrest. The controversial security bill was passed and made into a law in May 2020. Under the new security law, China punishes anything it considers subversion, secession, terrorism and even collusion with foreign forces with up to life in prison. Meanwhile, the law has also drawn wide criticism in the West for eroding basic and fundamental rights in Hong Kong. Journalist and special correspondent for the LA Times and Washington Post, Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick, is joining us live from Hong Kong at this hour. Let's quickly go across to Ryan. Ryan, a very warm welcome to you. Now, does the denial of bail to Tong Ying-kit indicate that the national security law supersedes Hong Kong's basic law?
Well, we don't know that for sure yet, but Friday was somewhat of a first litmus test to determine this, because Tong's legal team argued that Article 42 of the new national security law, as you said, is an effective no bail provision, because it says that defendants will not be granted bail by any judge unless there are sufficient grounds that they will not endanger national security again. So his legal team were challenging them this on constitutional grounds, saying it violates the basic law. In the judgment, the judges said that they can't make a determination of whether or not the national security law really supersedes the basic law. But this does give us a taste of what's to come, and it shows that a lot of the things that were taken for granted under Hong Kong's common law tradition, such as presumption of innocence, don't necessarily apply in the same way anymore.
Right, and as you mentioned, the violation of basic law, how is it being permitted? Most of those arrested earlier under the national security law have been released on bail, including Jimmy Lai and Agnes Chow. Why not Tong Ying-kit?
So far, Tong is the first one to actually be charged under the law, although others such as Jimmy Lai and the teenagers late last month for the Facebook posts have been arrested. Tong is the only one to actually be charged so far. And it's an open question about why he has been, remanded in custody for so long. His crimes, obviously, his alleged crimes, are interesting because they would have already been illegal, under existing laws before the national security law, such as reckless driving, resisting arrest, assaulting police officer. But they became political crimes in essence because he was carrying that flag which was only explicitly made illegal after the fact, after July 1st. So it's unclear exactly what the grounds are for remanding him in custody for so long, under the pretext that he could endanger national security again. Next week, we'll see this go through the ordinary courts in an ordinary bail hearing. So we'll see what happens then if he's granted bail for that process.
Right. Ryan, it's interesting that you mentioned the lack of clarity on the grounds on which he's been formally charged. Now, how independent is Hong Kong's judiciary, especially now when it comes to national security cases?
Of course, Hong Kong has always prided itself on the independence of its judiciary and the separation of powers. But this has really become a lot more uncertain now with the national security law, because it sets up this sort of parallel legal structure, especially for trying these cases, where it goes for a special police unit, a special office of the Secretary of Justice, and it's tried by judges handpicked by the chief executive. And so Tong's legal team are also arguing that the judges, the ones who handed down the ruling on Friday, are not independent because they've been handpicked by the government, by the chief executive, and they echoed in their ruling the government stance on this issue. So they've said that this isn't a valid or reasonable argument, but I don't think it's going to convince the critics of the law here in Hong Kong, who would say that they are compromised, that they're not independent because of their appointment by the chief executive.
Right. We'll have to wait and watch and see how Tong's arrest pans out next week when the matter reaches other courts. Thank you so much, Ryan, for bringing us all those latest details.